John Lamb as unimportant persons. Yet the crisis of the 1780s did not come from men like Sears and Lamb leading mobs. Elites could deal with popular mobs as they had in the past. Instead, the crisis came from the election in the 1780s of such, quote-unquote, unimportant persons to the state legislatures, in Sears and Lamb's case, to the New York Assembly, in a Republican elective system that was a situation not so easily dealt with. When the revolutionary leaders had asserted that all men were created equal, most had not imagined that ordinary people, farmers, artisans, and other workers, would actually come to hold high governmental offices. Men were equal at birth and in their rights, but not in ability and character. The rights of mankind are simple, said Benjamin Rush in 1787, expressing views that even those liberals like Jefferson, with a magnanimous view of human nature, would have endorsed. They require no learning to unfold them. They are better felt than explained. Hence, in matters that relate to liberty, the mechanic and the philosopher, the farmer and the scholar, are all upon a footing. But the case is widely different with respect to government. It is complicated science and requires abilities and knowledge of a variety of other subjects to understand it. Average Americans who had occupations and had to work with their hands for a living lack the proper qualifications for virtuous and disinterested public leadership. In the ideal polity, Aristotle had written thousands of years earlier, the citizen must not live in a mechanical or commercial life. Such a life is not noble, and it militates against virtue. According to Aristotle, artisans, agricultural workers, even businessmen could not be citizens, for men must have leisure to develop their virtue and for the activities of a citizen. In the late 18th century, some of this ancient prejudice against artisans and other workers participating in government still remained. This is interesting. I didn't know where this kind of originated from. Are you as fascinated as I am? Yeah? Well, that's great. I can tell because your arms are shaking. And you're cooing. In the late 18th century, some of this ancient prejudice against artisans and other workers participating in government still remained. Nature never intended that such men should be profound politicians or able statesmen, declared Oxford-trained William Henry Drayton of South Carolina. On the eve of the Revolution, he declared this, he did. How could men who never were in a way to study or to advise upon any points, but knew only rules how to cut up a beast in a market, or the best advantage to cobble an old shoe in the neatest manner, or to build a necessary house, how could such men claim a role in government? They were not gentlemen. They were not, according to this fella. The distinction between gentlemen and commoners, this most ancient and universal of all divisions of people, as John Adams called it, was crucially important. Horizontal cleavage in the largely vertically organized 18th century society, in which most people were more aware of those above and below them than of those alongside them. How sad is that? This division may even have been more conspicuous to some contemporaries than the horizontal line separating freemen from slaves. A gentleman, as that 18th century connoisseur of English manners. Oh man. You puked. Well, I'm going to keep reading. I'm not going to even let puke stop me. Connoisseur of English manners, Lord Chesterfield defined him, was a man of good behavior, well-bred, amiable, high-minded, who knows how to act in a society in the company of any man. Gentlemen who composed 5 to 10% of American society, fewer in the South than in the North, walked and talked in certain ways, and dressed distinctively and fashionably. In contrast to the plain shirts, leather aprons, and buckskin breeches of ordinary, I'm not to finish my sentence, breeches of ordinary men, gentlemen wore lace, ruffles, silk stockings, and other finery.
Good night, Colin.
Good night, Colin.